Hi guys, I'm Jen Long, the Creative Director at Sizzix. Thanks so much for tuning into my vlog today. I'm going to be sharing some of the tips and tricks for the Emboss and Transfer Kit. Now this is a bit of a mystery accessory, I feel, for Sizzix. These products used to be black and they used to be sold separately, and then we reconfigured them to align with our lifestyle big shot machine, so they're gray and white, and they're now sold together. And I think that these accessories are a huge mystery because there's so many different options of what you can do with them that people just aren't really sure what to focus in on. So I'm going to show you a variety of 4 different techniques today that we've discovered while playing around in the art room, so you can expand not only your Thinlits library but your embossing library and do so much more with your makes. So let's take a look. I'm going to come down here to my big shot machine, and the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to take this Thinlit die, and instead of cutting it out, I'm going to use the Emboss Transfer Set to emboss this. Now I'm working with my big shot machine, and if you have an older machine, you're going to want to go down to your lowest tab. If you have a newer machine, you can go ahead and stay on tab 1. Whatever tab goes the lowest, that's what you're going to want to work with. Both of them will work, however. For your sandwich, these are some interesting sandwiches. That's kind of the reason I wanted to do a vlog instead of a blog, so we could talk through all the different sandwich configurations you can do. So lowest tab, I'm going to do my impressions pad, I'm going to do my silicone pad, and really you can tell the impressions pad is has a little more density to it than a traditional cutting pad, and the silicone pad is just kind of squishy and floats around, but when they work together, it just makes magic for embossing a Thinlit. I'm going to lay down my die on top of those, and I'm just going to finish my sandwich and roll it through the big shot machine. That cracking sound is totally normal. And when we remove our material from the die, look at that. We got a beautiful all over embossed pattern from a Thinlit that was initially designed to just be an all over die cut. What a way to expand your Thinlit library by being able to emboss. It's so beautiful and adds such a cool dynamic sense of texture and dimension. I have a couple more examples here to show you. And honestly, this technique does work best when you use paper that has a bit of weight to it. So I'm using some craft stock right now. Paper leather is a good option. Our Sizzix cardstock is a good option that has a nice weight to it. And when I've used it with the cardstock, you can see here how I just added some ink mixed media effect on top of it to give it a little more dimension, have those lines pop a little bit further. Let me go on. There were just some all over dies I was experimenting with. I used some phrases. I really think the all over patterns are where it's at for this technique in general, though, especially if an all over phrase pattern, that would really do it. But just beautiful. Look at that lace. Oh, that's so much detail to get in a die, and now to be able to emboss it and feel the texture. It's just wonderful. Really nice technique, and expands your Thinlit library even further to be able to emboss. Now the next thing that we're going to look at is how to use your Emboss and Transfer Set to transfer ink. So here's what we're going to do. I'm just going to start on tab number 1, and I'm going to lay down my silicone impressions pad. I'm going to lay down my material, and I'm going to take my die set. Now this is just a die, a happy birthday to you die, designed to cut, obviously. And I'm going to lay this down on my ink pad. I'm going to lay it down gently, and I'm just going to kind of rub it like this. I'm not going to push too hard. I'm just allowing the ink to touch the top surface of the blade in this die. And then I'm going to carefully pick it up. I'm going to lay it down on my material. And I'm going to finish my sandwich with just the impression pad. So these two working together give you a completely different amount of pressure than your cutting pads do. And after you roll it through your big shot, oh, so pretty. So you can see that the blade has completely transferred the phrase onto the piece of paper. So guys, you've just turned your entire Thinlit library into a stamping library. So not only can you now cut, you can emboss, and you can stamp all with your Thinlit dies. We can take a look at some more examples. We have a nice intricate thank you. And then I was kind of interested, I showed you embossing, I showed you transferring ink. What happens when you do that together? So I added some ink to a couple dies before I emboss them. And honestly, it gives you a distressed look for sure. So this is just a plain ink transfer, and this is ink with embossing together. It kind of depends on your personal preference, how messy you're willing to get or how distressed or mixed media you want your stuff to look. So again, this is the all over lace pattern. I'll bring this, so this is where we started with just embossing, and then I added ink to the folder the same way we added ink to the happy birthday, and I ran that through the machine. Kind of depends on your personal preference. Again, some people would enjoy that and call it a mixed media look. Other people would cover that up with a label and put a sentiment on it because it was too messy. But just look at the variety of styles you're able to get, all from something you originally purchased just to cut out. Super cool. Now I'm gonna take you on another technique to show you how to emboss something that's already been die cut. So I have a cutout blossom die here, and I've cut it out of this piece of paper, which I have prepped on the back with adhesive sheets. It's perfect for adhesive sheets because of all those small intricate little pieces there. I want all those to stick down perfectly, and I place it like that. We're gonna come over to our platform. This is the same sandwich we used for the ink transfer. I'm gonna lay down my die, or my piece of paper, so this one's kind of a two-step process. You're gonna take the same die, and you're just gonna kind of find where it fit for the original die cut. You can feel it nest in there. You can feel a little pinch when it's sitting in the right place. And then you'd finish your sandwich again with the impressions pad, and you just roll this through your Big Shot machine. You're not gonna feel a ton of pressure on this, and that's okay. But the effect that you get when you remove it from your machine is super cool. So here we have all of those little metal pieces have puffed up to pop out from the die cut. That's the silicone pad pushing through the die to make them pop up. Now maybe you're saying I can't really tell a difference. Well, here I have the original. This is where we started. And don't get me wrong, this is beautiful, but look at that dimension. Don't you just want to touch that and see how that feels? It's almost like a marshmallow effect to it. So really a subtle, easy way to just add a little bit of poof when you have a negative die cut, two-step process. And this is something that we just kind of discovered recently, so we're kind of excited about that one. Now this next technique, this uses so many different accessories and several different steps. So we're gonna talk through how to use your Emboss Transfer Set with ink sheets and adhesive sheets and kind of like, I call it a reverse ink transfer. So I'm just gonna walk you through it. This is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna use this and an ink sheet to make a complete all over transfer onto my surface. Now, if you're not familiar with ink sheets are, it's like a dry transfer sheet. It's kind of comparable to carbon paper, but has a metallic kind of look to it. And what you're gonna do is lay down your surface. You're gonna lay down your embossing folder, but the way you do it here is a little bit different. You're gonna lay it down to where you can feel the raised area. So this area is depressed, this area is raised, and you're gonna lay your ink sheet down. Always use your ink sheet shiny side up. I'm still working on my embossing tab, and we're just gonna put this here. We're gonna cover it up with your impressions pad. That kind of gives you the density that you need. Gosh, I'm forgetting a thing here. I forgot my cutting pad. I'm sorry about that. So you start on embossing tab 1, lay your surface, lay your ink sheet, lay your embossing folder, and then you finish it with the impressions pad. The density of the impressions pad is what's gonna allow that transfer to happen. And then you roll that through your machine. Okay, this is the cool part. You reveal the ink sheet. Look at that beautiful all over dry ink transfer. What a cool way to get an immediate mixed media effect. You can tell that it's dry, and the only amount of pressure that you're gonna get to do that perfectly is using your impressions pad with a cutting pad on the embossing tab. But I did want to take this a little step further. We all know crafters hate to waste supplies. This is a beautiful piece of embossed gold, but what about this? Would you really want to throw that away? I know I certainly wouldn't want to throw that away. So what we've done is decided to take this a step further. So what I'm going to do is take my adhesive sheet. Adhesive sheets are typically used to adhere intricate die cuts, but I'm using it here to do a mixed media transfer. So I'm laying down my adhesive sheet just right on top of my piece of paper. And I'm going to smush that on there. And honestly, guys, I want to make sure that that transfers perfectly. And I have an emboss and transfer kit right with me. So I'm just going to lay this down, put my silicone, my impressions pad, and I'm going to roll it through the machine. Oh my goodness. Let's try this one. That's right. I'm going to roll it through the machine just to make sure that all of that adhesive transfers perfectly on there. So you can kind of see by the shininess of the lights from the camera that all the adhesive has transferred on there. Now I'm going to take my ink sheet, so this is the negative of what we cut here, and I'm going to lay it right on this piece of paper. And I'm going to go back to my big shot, and I'm going to use it as a transfer again to get the reverse negative of the ink sheet onto my new piece of paper. We're going to roll that through the big shot. And look how cool this is. You peel it off, and you have the reverse effect. Your ink sheet is completely used. Nobody can accuse you of wasting craft supplies there. And you have the complete negative effect of what was on here. Now you do have a little bit of adhesive left over because remember we put an entire adhesive sheet on that piece of paper before we ran it through the machine. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some Sizzix glitter and I'm just gonna cover this completely up. Obviously you wanna use something underneath your piece of paper because I have just poured a tremendous amount of glitter on here. Spread it around and just kind of knock it off. And look at that effect that you're able to create. Missed a little bit of adhesive sheet there, but if you just pay attention to where it's sticky, totally solvable. But look at what you started with, a sheet here, you had your ink sheet, you reversed that and put it on there, and then you added some glitter. I played around with this earlier. This is a rainbow and unicorn embossing folder and Thinlits set, and just to use black on black and then different color of deco foil to put it in there. So you can see how that gives you such a cool, kind of a clean mixed media effect almost. But I think one of the best things about all of the different techniques that I've shown you guys today is this is all stuff that you have laying at home. Everybody has adhesive sheets at home. You might have some ink sheets, you have your big shot, you have 2D embossing folders, you have Thinlits, you have ink. Really, you have all the components you need. You just need your two accessories, the silicone pad, the impressions pad, the emboss and transfer set used together, and you can really start experimenting and having so much fun with all the dies that you have at home. So these are available now at Sizzix.com. I hope you could pick up a pair and just start playing around with that. We'd love to see if you think of any more techniques other than what we've came up with here. So thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys back next week.